Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Stop and Go F1. I say good morning, it could be the afternoon or even the evening, wherever you are. Well, wherever it is, I hope you're having a good one. And welcome along to this F1 news video. What are we going to cover in this video? Well, firstly, we're going to get onto the rumours of Ricciardo replacing Nyck de Vries. We've got some talk about what the hell is going on behind the scenes in Alpine and what that could possibly mean for the future of one Otmar Szafnauer. And then finally, we're going to be taking a look towards next weekend, and more specifically, the alleged Mercedes upgrades and what that could possibly mean for the team. But before we get into any of that, firstly, you have to subscribe. That is the rules, I'm afraid. But secondly, there was a video that went out on this channel yesterday of my time down in Silverstone when I went to the museum, had a look around the track, went to some F1 factories. Some very interesting stuff in there, so make sure you watch that one once this one's done. That's all the rules out of the way. Let's get on to the news. And the biggest rumour that's been flying around this week is that Helmut Marko has set an ultimatum for Nyck de Vries in the Alpha Tauri seat. The quote that came out that said, if a Dutchman does not improve his performances in the next 3 GPs, which is Imola, Monaco and Barcelona, he could be set to be replaced by Daniel Ricciardo for the rest of the season. This rumour was then backed up by another rumour saying that Daniel Ricciardo had been for a seat fitting at Alpha Tauri to prepare for this big change. Then, mere hours after this, another rumour came out to say Daniel Ricciardo is not being set up to replace Nyck de Vries at Alpha Tauri, and he could not have gone to the Alpha Tauri factory as he was at a wedding. So a lot to kind of depack here from this story. Firstly, Nyck de Vries. Has his season been disappointing? Yes. He hasn't really been getting the results. He's been completely outshone by Yuki Tsunoda. And not only that, there's not really been any moments in the season for me where even when he's been getting bad results, there's been little glimpses of the possibility of what could come. I mean, he looked fantastic in Monza last year when he went head-to-head with Nicholas Latifi, but that might be because he was going head-to-head with Nicholas Latifi. And the Williams was a fantastic car around Monza last year, and he kind of just inherited that due to Alex Albon and his appendicitis, I believe it was. But this really, for me, brings up the whole question of really how good is Yuki Tsunoda? Because Yuki Tsunoda has been kind of shown up by Pierre Gasly. I mean, in their first year together, Gasly scored 3 times as many points as him. In their second year together, Gasly scored double the points of him. This year, is he doing very well? Is he performing more than that Alpha Tauri should? Or is he performing exactly where it should and Nyck de Vries is nowhere near? Personally, I think maybe dropping Nyck de Vries might be the right decision. I know it's very brutal, but Red Bull have been known to do it before in terms of dropping drivers half through the season. If Yuki is the guy, which personally I think the jury is out as of right now, but if Yuki is the next Red Bull guy, let's have a good measuring stick against him, and I think a better measuring stick for him would be Ricciardo over Nyck de Vries. But of course, whenever we talk about drivers going to Alpha Tauri, the name Liam Lawson must appear because he is a very talented driver who never really got his chance in F1. He got his chances in F2, but now I think he's in like Super Formula or something now. I don't think he would be the guy to replace Nyck at a halfway point of the season. I don't think that would be the right move because he would come in and maybe not underperform because he's not used to the car. If Liam Lawson was to get an AlphaTauri drive, I think it should be from the start of the season, not from a midpoint. If you want someone to come in from a midpoint, I think Daniel Ricciardo would be the perfect guy. And personally, I think it might be for the best. If I think, these kind of rumours that come out, even though it says, there's nothing being discussed, there's no talk here at all, there's no smoke without fire when this kind of thing, I think there is quiet discussions, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe after the season break we saw Nyck de Vries go away, because not only is he underperforming, but he's not even really a young driver. I mean, in terms of like the age range of all the drivers, I think he's like slap bang in the middle. It's not like someone like a Piastri who is very young and has a lot of future ahead of him. There's not a lot of time for Nyck de Vries to get better before people start going, oh no, now he's too old. So, yeah, I think is he older than Verstappen? I'm going to do a quick Google in the background here. So, Nyck de Vries. There he is. We want to know his age, please. So Nyck de Vries is 28 years old. So he's older than me, and I'm really old. People also search, well, Yuki Tsunoda, his teammate, 27, Oscar Piastri, 22, Logan Sargent, also 22. So the 3 rookies who come in this year, 2 of them are 22, the other one is 28. So it's like, to put that fully into perspective here, Max Verstappen, your current reigning double world champion, soon to be world champion again, it's looking like, he's 25. So Nyck de Vries is 3 years older than him. Charles Leclerc, also 25. Nyck de Vries is not just like one of the, he's middle of the pack. He's one of the older guys. And he's a rookie here. Honestly, I think his time has passed. He's had his chance here. It's only a very small chance, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out. Maybe it is time to pull the plug and move on. And I think if you were to pull the plug at halfway point, Ricciardo would be the good guy, because he's got that experience in the car, he knows what he's doing, and also it'd be a bit of a redemption arc for him, because as much as I agree that he massively underperformed in the McLaren over the last couple of years, I think that was a mix of the car not suiting him and him losing all of his confidence. I mean, Christian Horner said in an interview not so long ago about when he came back to Red Bull as the third driver, that he was just a completely different person. The Daniel that he knew wasn't there. Also, he'd lost a ton of weight as well. So it just seems like he got into such a bad place at McLaren because the results weren't coming, that he lost all his confidence. He kind of got into a place where he just wasn't eating, wasn't performing, and I think he was just in a bad place mentally. I think he's in a much better place now, and when you look at Daniel Ricciardo's career, he needs a car where he's confident on the brakes, because what he was famous for, especially in his Red Bull times, was those huge dive bombs where he'd make those incredible moves, and he needs to be confident on the brakes for that to happen. And during his entire time at McLaren, there was just consistent brake problems. I mean, they're still there now. They can't solve them for whatever reason. They built a car, basically, which is the anti-Daniel Ricciardo. Put him in a car where he's comfortable, I think we would start to see that old Ricciardo come out again. And I think this will be good for everyone, apart from Nyck de Vries. Okay, moving on to the next story, and we're talking about Alpine now. And Laurent Rossi, the CEO of Alpine F1, he's never one to keep an opinion to himself. He made a statement towards the end of last week when he said, "I am noticing not only an evident lack of performance at work, but also a potential mood that is not up to the past standards of the team. I didn't like the first Grand Prix because there was a lack of, excuse me for saying it was amateurism. Choose the word that sounds better, which led to his results that was not right. It was mediocre and bad." He then went on to basically blame Otmar. I haven't got the quote here, but he said something along the lines of, "I brought Otmar in to lead the team forward. Now it's his job to turn the team round." So Laurent Rossi not happy at the results of Alpine F1 team, which, is in a way is understandable, but really I don't think they've massively improved from last year. I think they're still in a good position. I mean, look, they were going head-to-head with McLaren towards the end of last year, and now they're far ahead of McLaren, so in a way that's good. But I think Laurent Rossi is also looking at the likes of Aston, who were behind Alpine last year, and are now massively in front. So really what it seems, though, is that Otmar might not be long for this world. And another report came out that Alpine had contacted Mattia Binotto, who was the head of Ferrari last year. They contacted him as a possible replacement for Otmar, but the former Ferrari team principal refused. And now it's being rumoured again that another possible replacement for Otmar is Eric Boullier. Eric Boullier, who used to be the team principal of Renault when they were back at Lotus. He worked at McLaren for a little bit, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. It's a tough one, because, Alpine, as a team, apart from the 2 years where Fernando Alonso set the world on fire and became a double-time world champion, they've always been around here. In the early 2010s, they were a bit further up, but they've always been a midfield team. And I think with them as well, I can see where he's coming from. But also, if you look at last year, they should have been miles ahead of McLaren. but their engine kept on exploding. So I don't think you can blame everything on Otmar. As much as I think there's... If I was to point at anyone to blame, I'd point at Laurent Rossi. Because he seems to be like just the most negative force in the world. He seems to be the driving force of all things bad inside of Alpine. I mean, if you look at how they handled Alonso last year, they just messed him about. He was very happy to stay, but they messed him about over and over and over again, to the point that they forced him out the door to go to Aston, who are now destroying them. I don't think getting rid of Otmar would solve this situation, because I think Otmar, despite everything, is quite a good team principal. I didn't like how he handled the Alonso situation either, especially after Alonso had signed with Aston. But I don't think replacing him with Boullier would fix it. I mean, if you look at the history of this team, especially in the last 10 years, they're almost as bad as Ferrari in terms of just throwing people out. They had Boullier, then they went to someone else, then it was Cyril, then it was Otmar. Who was between Eric Boullier and Cyril? Was it Vasseur? They had Frederick Vasseur for a little bit. I'm going to see if I can look it up. So Renault F1 team. Here we go, everyone. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. Well, it's giving me Alpine. But yeah. I'm probably not going to figure this out right now. It might have been Vasseur, though. Vasseur was definitely the team principal for a little bit. It's madness, really, that they just think that they're going to get better without really improving anything. I mean, I always go back to when this year, their big livery launch that they did, they were so confident. It was unbelievable. Like, they came out the blocks, they were like, yeah, we're probably going to stay fourth. We're probably still going to be the fourth best team. But we're going to be closer to third than ever before. And it's just like, are you sure? It's just... And then that confidence just disappeared. So, I'm looking up now, team principals. Now, obviously, they had Flavio Briatore for a very long time, until Crashgate came along. Then they had a few interim ones. Eric Boullier came in on the 5th of January 2010. I'm going to try and find out who replaced him. It doesn't really... It's not a great place to learn all this stuff. The show is in there somewhere. Anyway, they've had a few, and none of them have massively improved where they've gone. So, it's a tough one, but I don't see them improving by getting rid of Otmar. That's for sure. Moving on, though, to Mercedes. Now, there was a rumour coming out of the German press from Michael Schmidt, who said that at Imola, Mercedes will bring half a new car, upgrading the floor, front axle and side pods. He went on to say, I think Mercedes are simply making a fresh start now because they feel like they've lost their way with this car. They've tried everything and nothing has worked. Now they want to make a fresh start with the danger that at first it might be a step backwards, but that gives you more understanding because you're starting from scratch again. Toto Wolff has come out and added on to this. He has said, the upgrade package is a big operation. In the virtual world, it promises a good step in terms of lap time, but we have to rein in our expectations. He then would announce that in the first practice session of Imola, both W14s will be directly out in the B version, because he says a direct comparison between the old version and the new version, would be no use because the package is simply too big. So yeah, at Imola we see a brand new Mercedes. Miami was the last race for that Mercedes. It's gone. It's in the bin. It will never be seen again. We're getting a brand new Mercedes at Imola. What does this actually mean? Does this mean we're getting the black Red Bull? I think I'm leaning that way. But from the point of view of pace, what does that mean for Mercedes? I think this will be a step backwards for Mercedes. Now, I did a video not too long ago about what's next for Mercedes. I think I did it after the Bahrain race. And basically, my opinion hasn't massively changed from there. If they were to change their entire car, which they are doing, it'll be a step backwards. They will probably get closer to Alpine than they will to the likes of Aston or Red Bull. And I think it'll be a long season of them getting faster and faster. And eventually they will be in a better position than they are now. But it will take a while. And when they get to that position where they are better than they are now, Red Bull, Aston, potentially Ferrari, will be in an even better position than they are now. Maybe not Ferrari, because it seems like they're doing the exact same thing as well. Now, a lot of people have commented that Aston basically just copied the Red Bull, and look how good they are now. But Aston copied the Red Bull at Spain last year, where they went backwards and slowly improved on that and got better to the point where this season they are in a much better position, but still not as fast as the Red Bull. And I think that's what we'll see from Mercedes. I do not expect them to be fighting the same way they were in Miami in Imola. Also, very interesting story coming out of Mercedes this weekend was that Adrian Newey was contracted by Mercedes before signing his contract with Red Bull. So Mercedes went to Newey and offered him to be the new technical chief at Mercedes, and he said no. As you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Mercedes contracting Adrian Newey is a good idea because obviously he has the best understanding of these types of cars. Adrian Newey saying no does not surprise me. But what I find very interesting about it is, if you remember a few weeks ago, there was the whole story about James Allison coming back as the new head of the technical department. And my question at the time was, why have they left this so late? Why are they doing this like 3 or 4 races into the season? Why didn't they do this immediately or before the start of last year? And it appears the reason might be, the reason they took so long to sign James Allison back as the new technical chief is that maybe they were looking to sign Adrian Newey. That, to me, I think the timing adds up perfectly, really. They wouldn't bring in James Allison for a few months to replace him with Adrian Newey. I think at Mercedes, they thought there was a realistic chance that they could sign Adrian, and when he said no, that's when they went to James Allison. Now, that is all speculation on my behalf here, but I think the timing lines up pretty well. So, that is all we've got time for this weekend, for this F1 news video. Considering there was no race this weekend, there was an awful lot of stuff to get through, because there's some big stories there, going into drivers, teams, team principals, basically 3 teams which are currently in chaos and desperately trying to fix it. That's all we've got time for, though. Next week, we'll be back with Imola. It's another race weekend next weekend. Until then, though, there's some videos out here on the minute. There's a video on Gunfer Sider's book and all the things I learned from that. There's a video of my time at Silverstone. That's really fun. So make sure you check all that out. We'll be back next week. But until then, have a great week. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.